It is now post time for X's and O's with Minnesota Vikings head coach Kevin O'Connell, and I'm Paul Allen. This is courtesy of the Minnesota Lottery. The Vikings are 4-1 and have swept their way through the first half of the NFC North. Still undefeated at home, they head to the road, South Florida, to play the Miami Dolphins noon on KFAN this weekend. And this is my attempt to make you excited on a Tuesday taping for a Wednesday radio show and a Sunday game. You ready?
Yeah.
Miami leads the NFL in 0 send the kitchen sink blitzes, which has risk and reward to it, but that also feels like single coverage. And when an offensive-minded coach knows there's going to be single coverage, that probably excites you. It
does. You know, you got to figure out a way to block them and at least give Kirk a chance because they're very, very good when they send those zeros. They know, they kind of know how you're going to try to block them, and they know how to kind of have more numbers than you have in certain spots, and they'll drop people out to, kind of handle some of the quicker throws. So we've got to be really dialed in, have a clear plan for not only Kirk, but our guys of, the skill players and our offensive line, running backs, tight ends. How are we going to block it? Are we going to use 6, 7?
Yeah.
Are we going to try to put more guys out into the pattern, or are we going to try to max it up? And I think you'll see a little bit of both. I think we have to have a plan at every phase, every down and distance, to handle what they bring, and it definitely provides a layer of game planning that we account for it every week, but it's a real big priority for us this week.
And a quarterback's mindset into a game like that, it could be double-edged sword, because it's like, yeah, I know there are going to be big plays potentially to be had, but I also know I'm going to probably get smacked a couple of times because you can't get them all every time.
No, and there's going to be some of the biggest plays that the Dolphins have gave up this year. I mean, they're great plays from the quarterback position, but we all see the ball in flight. We all see the catch and runs after, but what sometimes we miss is the quarterback, taking one on the chin and ending up on his backside. And you got to be willing, that kind of risk reward of those. It goes for the defense. They're sending all out pressure. They've got to be willing to deal with the consequences, just like we've got to be willing to deal with the consequences of maybe trying to push the ball downfield and generate an explosive.
Yeah, you played quarterback, so I would imagine it mentally can be difficult sometimes to get to the mindset of like Brett Favre, Ben Roethlisberger, Kurt Warner. Okay, now those are the highest of high end, but they would stay in the pocket till the last second, knowing they're going to get smashed and deliver a dime. And at least from what I've seen through Cousins' career, he naturally is good at that. He'll hang in there knowing he's going to get smacked. Not everybody's like that, right?
Yeah, even going back to last year, I think about the throw he made versus the Packers.
Thielen and Jefferson to the right. Kirk facing a big blitz. He's hit. Loops it up to Jefferson. Caught. 5. Touchdown!
And all-out pressure. Cannot block them all coming. Justin's running basically an inside fade.
Front right of the end zone?
Yes, exactly right. And he just absolutely drops a dime and takes a huge shot. And Kirk, historically, he knows when the quarterback knows that it's that kind of pressure, and that that throw is out there. There's milliseconds that go into the detail of Justin and Adam and KJ understanding they've got to win and win right now, no matter what the coverage looks like, because Kirk's holding that rock with a free runner coming. And so we've got to make sure we detail up exactly down to every blade of grass that we're going to be on down there in Miami, that we are accounting for those pressures when we can and having a great plan for what we're going to do with that football when we can't.
Kevin, I think one of the underrated facets of the 4-1, where there's been a lot of details and minutiae to analyze, some bad, some good, but the bottom line is you're 4-1, is the lack of panic. Clearly there is with this entire thing when it gets hot, because things may be going wrong for like half a quarter. But then when you need a tackle for loss on Jamal Williams, you get it. When you need Dantzler to make what was the biggest play of his career on Olave, you get it. And then this weekend, Amir Smith-Marset, and it gets ripped away from him. How does one teach that, not to stay with tranquility and not panic?
Well, one of our football philosophy core principles is being situational masters, and that doesn't always just mean, those clock situations or the end of half. Sometimes it's late in the game. Can we execute just better than our opponents? Can we play with great ball security? Can we make great decisions? Can we be at our best when it's required. And I think we've talked about that. Really, I look back on my first meeting talking to the team here at our facility is that goes back to the spring of we're going to practice these things, we're going to talk about them. And in those moments, the expectation is going to be a quieted mind by our players, our coaching staff, and we'll have a clear-cut plan of what we've got to try to do to give ourselves a chance. And then if you're in that moment and you're able to execute and be at your best when it's required, we've got really good players, and we just want to give them clear-cut plans of attack and then let them just go play fast, and good things have happened late in games.
Unless my Pasadena City College math is bad, I think you've called 328 plays through 5 games. And about a 60-40 run-pass ratio, 60 on the pass side. You happy with that split where it is now? And do play callers get on rolls where you're like everything is just snappy?
Yeah, I think I think you do. I think there's unfortunately, some of the calls you feel the best about, sometimes the defense has a say in it too. And I think we've talked a lot about, the start we got off to the other day. We're still playing an NFL team and an NFL defense over there that, has the ability to make adjustments and make little plays here and there. The razor-thin margin of error exists. I know fans don't like to hear that. I know some of our players and coaches don't like to hear that. But ultimately, the consistency is not going to be always pure domination of an opponent. That just is very difficult to grasp in this league. It's how you overcome and how you minimize those lulls so that they are just bumps in the road instead of half a quarter or a full quarter of not being as successful as we want to be. So as a play caller, I have a ton to do with it. I've got to do a better job continuing to help manage those lulls, relying on our players to ultimately make plays, but I've got to continue to put them in great spots consistently on my end. So, we're doing our job as coaches to help them out.
And having a guy like Mike Pettin around, who's been a head coach, gave you your start in Cleveland, and having somebody like him who's just seen so much. And I would imagine that helps with the maturation of the whole thing. Is that fair?
Yeah, absolutely. I think his input offensively, defensively, he kind of has a 30,000-foot view of our football team, and he's able to have that dialogue with myself. Some of our Matt Daniels, Ed Donatel, and we can kind of take a look back and, hey, sometimes you get too close to it, PA. Sometimes you're in it too much in the granular side of plays and techniques and leverages, and Pet can do a great job sometimes just sitting back and saying, hey, just don't forget about the fact that the last 5 runs you called, you ran for 5+ a carry. Even when sometimes we may be hunting things down the field or trying to get a particular player going, trying to get Kirk going, whatever it may be. Sometimes you got to step back, and that influence has been huge for me.
I haven't watched much Dolphins yet, but just looking at it from afar, Raheem Mostert, and I know you're really familiar with him from the Niners days, and we played him in the playoffs a few years ago, and he just absolutely obliterated the team. Seems like he's starting to go, like off that injury. Is he starting to get hot?
Yeah, I think so. He's electric. He's got the type of skill set at that position where if you let him get started, and he's a great runner on the perimeter, he's got one of the best offensive run game minds, in my opinion. Mike's a great coach. He's really been responsible for a lot of years putting together that run game that's been so successful in San Francisco. He's taken that right there with him to Miami, and they've got great skill players at the receiver position, so all the play pass comes to life. But you let Raheem Mostert get going, he's a ring the bell type player from any spot on the field. Very tough to tackle in the open field, explosive, dynamic, and you're right, he's getting healthy, and you're starting to see it again.
Former track star at Purdue. You were with Andre Whitworth in Los Angeles, Trent Williams in Washington, and Joe Thomas in Cleveland. Now, this is in no way saying Christian Darrisaw is them. But 15-ish into his career, are you starting to see domination, the great one, show?
I think Christian's capable of absolutely, skill set wise, his ability, his competitive nature, his demeanor. He's got all of it right there for him. And what is really cool to see, I challenged CD the night before the game. I knew that he would have a matchup with Robert Quinn, who is a guy that can change the game and really factor into the game. But we didn't want to have to dictate a lot of things protection-wise his way. I challenged CD the night before the game in front of the whole team. Hey, you're gonna have your best game yet because of our trust and faith and your ability to go do those things and win this matchup. And, by all accounts, he had an unbelievable game, and I gave him a game ball yesterday in the team meeting just because of his response to that. Now the secret for CD is, can you do it every single week? Do you need to always be challenged to have that kind of detail in how you play, technique, fundamentals, and then just understanding you've got a skill set that if you play consistently the right way, he's going to be a pretty dominant left tackle in this league.
How's Ed Ingram coming along?
He's doing really well. I think it's really benefited him to have Brian O'Neill on his right and Garrett Bradbury on his left from a communication standpoint, making sure that Ed is never left behind at the line of scrimmage from what are we in, how are we blocking this look, that look, what adjustments do we need to make, because when offensive linemen have played together a long time, sometimes there's some things that go unsaid that they need to make sure they say. So Ed hears it and he knows exactly what we're doing so he can then anticipate and play fast post-snap. But Ed's been really good. He's been physical. He's had some real moments of consistency in games. And then as all young players do, we're trying to just help him eliminate those one or two plays here or there that might have an effect on what we're doing as an offense.
Lastly, from what you know about Cam Dantzler and what you've seen through his first 2 seasons, and in fairness, in his rookie year, there was a tough 4th down moment against DK Metcalf, a tough moment last year against Amon-Ra St. Brown back left at Ford Field that, where it didn't handle it well. And things are being handled better by Cam this year. What's different with him from what you know?
Well, I think he's playing with confidence right now. I think he believes, within the system. He's really trying to push himself to test the boundaries of how competitive, how tight he can be in coverage versus some really good players. He's had some matchups, whether it be, in Philadelphia, Detroit, obviously. With Olave, you already mentioned.
It's every week.
So it is every week in this league. And how consistent can you be when your number gets called? And obviously, if you're going to be targeted, take it as a sign of it's time for me to go make some plays, and you'll see less targets. And that's what he's done. Pat P's been ultra consistent on the other side. And then what I love about both those guys that I don't think people talk about enough is the physicality at which they play, supporting in the run, tackling in space, and then ultimately a huge play to go get the football there at the end of the game to avoid any chance of them trying to tie it up.
Great start, my man.
Yeah, thank you,
4-1. Good luck in Miami. Kevin O'Connell, X's and O's, with Chris O'Hara, the quarterbacks coach, joining us around the corner on the KFAN Minnesota Vikings Radio Network.